Welcome back to another episode from Pro Engineering. I have a confession to make. This is a product by WPL and I love it. I absolutely adore these 1/16 scale WPLs. I've got several. We've got this one here, which we built in a previous video. We've got this all metal Land Cruiser that we reviewed and built in another previous video. It's got tons of upgrades. In fact, these both have got upgrades. That doesn't actually stop there. Project Dumpster Box over here is also completely WPL running gear. I find them to be incredibly reliable once you've made some key modifications. For example, metal drive shafts are critical. It's always nice to either upgrade the motor or get the 2-speed transmission. And most importantly, on all of the WPLs that I've driven, toss the electronics. They are simply not up to par with someone who's more akin to hobby grade RC cars. Now I have a new one that came in. Let's take a look at it. Look at it. This is magnificent. First off, I love small cars. Not just small RC cars, I mean small cars in general. This car, its 1-to-1 scale version, is so small that this tiny car, which we'll see in a moment, is actually 1/10 scale. Now, I bought this directly from the WPL website, and we should perhaps open it. I was poking at it earlier to open it up, and then I thought we might as well open this on camera, even though I hate unboxing. So that's cut, and over here. I thought it'd be a good idea just to see how these things were shipped and packaged and all that good stuff. So let's open that up. And ooh, happens to be the right orientation. And here we have it. So the vehicle is a Suzuki Carry, and it is a what's called a K car. If anybody's into Mopars, that isn't K as in the letter K. This is actually K, and I believe it's spelled K-E-I, and it's a certain class of vehicles in Japan that are under a certain exterior geometry as well as engine size. This does not come with it. I happen to also order a metal rear axle, so we can ignore this. Again, this is from the WPL website. What you get is the truck and the remote. First impressions, this weighs absolutely nothing. I mean, holy cow. This has no mass whatsoever. That's not a bad thing. That just means that there's less weight for the motor to push around. First things first, just look at the wheels and tires. Oh, hang on a second. That feels like a real... Don't even tell me this is proportional steering. Oh, God, that would be great if it did. Look at it. I thought this was white, and it's not. It's beige. It's a very, very pale beige. I'm not saying that's bad. I just happen to think it was white. This, hang on. Is this painted? I've got to say, oh my God, it is painted. Look at this. That's where it was held when it was being, can you see that right there? If I can just kind of zoom in there. Right there. That is where it was held during painting. So this color is actual paint. Holy free holies. That is remarkable to see. Again, this was cheap. This was what? $45, has an actual painted body, a little bit of orange peel, but you know, I mean, to be honest, I don't know that my paint jobs are much better than that. Holy cow. Okay, let's put that aside for a moment. Look at the instructions, because I actually never do this usually. So there's stickers. Oh, there's stickers right there. Oh, wait a minute. 7.4 volt battery. Let's see the battery. Where is the battery? Where does the battery go? I don't see where the battery goes. Okay, we'll have to investigate that later. So there are indicator decal. Yeah, so there's little decals here. I know that the car has headlights, but look at the turn signals. There is a little hole there for a 3mm LED. That is awesome. Oh my God, the taillight's same way. taillight and turn signal both have holes. So you can very, very easily add lighting to this car. I don't know where the battery is or goes. Where does the battery go? No way. That's a hinge. That's a hinge. This is so it's 7.4 volt. Holy cow. Historically, these WPLs come with these kind of crappy little 5-cell batteries. Wow, this is interesting. I don't know what that is. That's like, oh, that's like the little guard for the back window. Cool. Little tiny screwdriver. I love these little screwdrivers. What I end up doing usually is making little housings for them and stuffing them on the RC car. Yeah, that's definitely a lithium polymer battery. Holy cow, I can't believe that. How cool is that? Does it actually say? So not lithium polymer, lithium ion. And that should have been a giveaway because lithium polymer batteries would never come. They're prismatic. They don't come in cylinders, whereas lithium ions do. So, I mean, that's nothing wrong with that. That's better because lithium polymer batteries are also much more volatile than pretty much most batteries out there. So this is a battery, and I think it goes under something. Yeah, it goes right there. Yeah, you should just press it in there. I'm not going to do that just yet. I don't want to assemble too much on this car because obviously you're watching Ampro Engineering, not because we leave things alone. So I've already got my head spinning here. This concerns me right here. The drive shafts on a lot of these WPLs are usually bad. This is surprising to see. This drive shaft is screwed on. The early ones were pressed on. Well, that's interesting to see. I'm actually quite curious if I can just ditch this in favor of a metal one. Nice leaf springs at the rear. Damn, double wishbone front suspension. That is slick. I can't believe that. I wonder how many applications I'll have for this chassis. So that's very nice. I'm just looking at how scale this whole underbelly looks. That's remarkable. Kind of wish I would have molded it in black. You'd think that black would have been a better color for it. You've got your clip-on mirrors with, oh my God, these are actually metal mirrors. Jeez, that is, I mean, honestly, WPL, I've loved their old stuff. You know, they had their downsides, but yeah, I'm the only thing I'm not liking so far is, again, the drive shaft. But the fact that it does look beefier and that it's screwed on makes me very, very happy. The battery looks great. Let's look at the radio, because I said normally where these cars fall flat are the electronics. First thing I want to notice is that this has a soft touch applique, and it feels quite nice in the hand. You know, it's small, but, you know, whatever. I mean, it fits, my hand seems to fit pretty well. It probably fit a child's hand much better. It feels good. The throttle actually feels pretty darn good. The steering feel also feels pretty good. Let's put some batteries in this. So you've got a little screw down here. Will the screwdriver that it came with work? Indeed it will. I think it's 2 AA's. I've got 2 rechargeable AA's in here. 1 power button here on. There we go. Okay, so that's a couple extra buttons. It looks like this one somehow changes the steering rate, and that one somehow changes the throttle rate. You've got your steering adjustment. Oh my God, this car might be proportional. Let's flip you back over, pop this out, and there's our connector. It does have one of these. I don't like these connectors very much, mainly because I tend to use a lot of standard LiPo batteries in my cars, but I mean, I know why they did it. So I guess we'll just shove that somehow. It's like one of my designs. Batteries never fit. Kind of, and we're in. Okay, so that's in, and radio on, car. Look at that. It's proportional, and it feels good. This servo's quiet. The style of the steering is something similar to rack and pinion. Oh, it feels good. Okay, so that's how far it turns normally. Let's try the steering rate button. So dramatically increase the steering rate. That's kind of cool. And then let's see here. Throttle's what, on and off? Come on, you're kidding. Oh, that's fantastic. So throttle rate, let's see here. Even higher. That's insanity. That is insanity for what I paid for this thing. Ooh, lights. Magnificent. Holy cow. Okay. I'm curious how this thing runs. Let's take it for a spin, but what I want to do before we part ways today is I'm curious if they've got like one solid PCB that manages steering, throttle, and receiver, or if it's a separate servo. I'm really quite curious. The spring, it appears to be a torsion bar. Look at that right there. I see a little spring arm. So it's got a torsion bar front suspension. I'm so going to paint this interior. This is going to be so much fun. Okay, I could be here another 2 hours. Let's take it for a spin. All right, here we are. So radio is on, truck is on. The first thing to note is that when I accelerate, the speed control is pretty rudimentary. You can really hear the motor. That's the frequency. And so it's kind of low frequency, but you know, it works. So it's going a little to the left. Setting the steering trim is excellent on this. I mean, look how straight it's going. That's probably quarter or third throttle. That's in the lower speed as set by the controller. It's stable. It really runs well. I mean, obviously it's a little bouncy, so maybe eventually they'll come out with some oil-filled shock upgrades, but it runs good. I'm gonna push the button. Let's increase speed by pushing this button here. Ignore the paint on my finger. All right. It's not a massive increase, maybe 15%. Whoa. So one thing of note is, I mean, the suspension does work well enough. It's a little bit light, but if you try and get the truck to, I'm gonna try and get it to get the front end on the curb, you can watch the rear end collapse, which is good. So the suspension is doing something. When I was messing with this, I noticed something interesting. So I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to accelerate and then hit the brakes by quickly pushing backward on this. Okay, so I'm going to go accelerate and then slam on the reverse and watch what happens. All right, so here we go. Accelerate. And that was me going very quickly into brakes. And what happens is the truck will actually brake. The rear brakes or the rear wheels will lock up beautifully and the truck will come to a stop. Now what's interesting is that's me going from throttle to brake like that. So you can see the truck in the background. Now watch as I do that slower. So we'll accelerate and I will, there you go, see that? If I slowly go into reverse, or go into braking, I should say, to kind of give a more linear braking style, it doesn't want to do that. So it seems like it will go into reverse if you slowly apply the brakes. So the brakes only exist under full reverse. So, you know, minor little niggling thing there, but not so bad. The proportional steering and the proportional throttle they're quite good. You know, I would say that mine are better, but not by much. I mean, the fact of the matter is I don't have to do anything to this car, so that's great. The steering is fantastic. So watch this. I guess the little lines on the sidewalk will make it easy to see how much it steers. So I'll put the truck right there. We'll crank it all the way to the right, and we'll see what it can do. So that is a full 180. So next we'll push the steering rate button, which will increase it, I think. Well, we'll find out right now, won't we? Crank it hard right. And that's a tight turning radius. The downside is because the truck does not have a differential, it's got a locked rear end, it makes it a little bit bouncy. So if I go a little faster, I don't know how well you can see it, but the back of the truck is a little bouncy because the inside wheel is traveling at the same rate as the outside wheel. and turning tightly doesn't like that. I think this thing ran fantastic, but before I dive into some more of the details, I did want to show off again, possibly in a better way, how the rear brakes work. So again, if we accelerate, so the remote's on, if we accelerate, and you see exactly what I'm doing here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to accelerate and then slam on the brakes. Now what I'll do is I will accelerate and then slowly apply the brakes. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's something to mention. What I would also like to mention is that I found out that the front wheel is running on ball bearings. And check that out. Dual inner and outer ball bearings. I cannot believe that they did that. I'm curious about the rear. I kind of doubt it, as I am quite familiar with that rear axle. Now, the replacement one that I bought here to have the rear axle in completely metal, this is ball raced. But let's see if we can take the rear wheel off and see inside here at all. I really don't feel like disassembling the whole rear axle, but maybe we can pull off the drive shaft and take a look. It is not a ball bearing, but that does appear to be a metal bearing, so that's better. Okay, we'll stick that back in there and reinstall the set screw. The last thing I want to do is take the cab off and just check out the electronics. Looks like these two screws come off here, and it almost looks like the back of the body is tabbed into. Nope, that's, yeah, it actually might be the back of the body might be tabbed in under the bed here. So let's see. Okay, you have to push this little tab here back. Sorry I didn't do it on camera. I was trying not to break anything. And, oh, this is the headlights. So let's pull this off. Solder joint doesn't appear to be very strong. Let's just unplug. Come on. I'm worried about that. So it looks like we have a single PCB. Okay. So we have our header pins that go into the servo. This plug here appears to be for the power switch. This one here appears to be for the battery. And the one here at the bottom with these small leads goes to the motor. This is the antenna. I'm quite curious as to what this is. I suspect I can look this up on the website. Now, it does appear in here, yes, you can adjust the caster by altering the placement of this upper, I guess we'll call it a control arm mount. Here's our camber adjustment. Here's our toe adjustment. Here we have our torsion springs. Very, very neat stuff. I mean, the level of detail and honestly, the care taken into the engineering of this is pretty remarkable. Okay, so we'll just reinstall you. Power back on, we can see the steering a little more in action from the top. A little rack and pinion it's got there. Now, I say rack and pinion. I don't know if it actually has a rack and pinion. I don't really feel like taking that apart in this particular video, but it's of that style. One thing I do want to see is how much voltage we're getting out of this port. So we get our voltmeter and that. Wow, 3.5 volts. This tells me that these LEDs here, makes perfect sense, these are running without a resistor. Usually white LEDs are 3.3 volts, so this makes perfect sense. What's important to note is that if you are going to try and run a red LED for the taillights, usually those are around 2 volts, so plugging them directly in without a resistor will diminish their life. I think yellow or amber bulbs is around 3.5 volts, so that should be pretty good. But just note that you do want to ensure that you don't burn out any LEDs by plugging them in here. Conversely, if you try to plug in a blue LED, those are usually around 4.5 volts. So that could be a bit of a problem as well. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention is that these tires look great, but unfortunately they hide something sinister. And that is that they really don't have any flex. You see that this tire is just a little kind of wrap around a much larger rim. So if you peel this back, you basically got the rim right there. There is no sidewall flex, unfortunately. And this may result in a bit of a bumpy ride. I don't know why WPL went about doing this. Perhaps it was due to moldability of such a small tire. I don't know. I mean, RC four-wheel drive has some this size, or at least close to this size. Perhaps it's just the fact that this vehicle is targeted at a different demographic. You know, the price point is quite low on this, so maybe having something with spongier tires wouldn't be particularly good. I don't know. One thing that's also a little bit irritating is that when you do overload the back of the truck, the tire hits the inner fender and effectively locks the rear wheels. So I think that can be very easily remedied with some bump stops. And if higher performance is what you're looking for, then that shouldn't be an issue. Reviewing and playing with this truck has been fantastic. I think I've gone through probably around 10 or 15 battery packs on this, simply because I can't seem to put it down. I don't know why. I mean, it's not particularly fast. It doesn't handle particularly well. It's not good at jumping. It's not really, I don't know, it's not really good at anything in particular other than being a tiny little, incredibly scale vehicle. And I think that is the allure, at least for me. The question is, do you want to get one? Well, the thing is, this is a 1/10th scale vehicle. So some of the other WPLs are smaller, they're 1/16th or even significantly smaller than that. And that might clash with your 1/10th scale arsenal. However, this is a 1/10th scale car. Given how small these K vehicles in Japan are, it might be a little hard to believe, but fact of the matter is, it's a small car. So that means if you have a primarily 1/10th scale collection, this thing should just completely float right on in there. I think it is just absolutely brilliant looking. And if you're looking for something scale that you can kind of drag anywhere with you, or even want to make some kind of drift vehicle, because it seems that this is where this particular vehicle is targeted to, the drift crowd, which is fantastic, then this may be a really good option for you. The scale details are quite remarkable, and I think with a little bit of detailing, you can make this thing absolutely unbelievable. If you're looking for something for off-roading or jumping, this is not your vehicle. I mean, it is two-wheel drive. It does not have any kind of oil damper, so it's very, very bouncy, you know, as it drives around. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it also has no sidewall flex because these rubber tires are basically just wrappers on a plastic wheel. So the basher or, you know, person that wants to launch it off of even a curb, I think would be too high for this thing. Probably want to take a look at some of the newer WPL offerings that have the proportional steering and throttle that come RTR. That probably is a better choice. I have a few plans for this. I'm not going to go ahead and do a massive number of upgrades for it. In fact, it may just be about some paint details and a lighting upgrade, but that's really about it for this car. Still, I've loved it so much that I've ordered yet another one and picked up some additional spare parts for another project that I'm working on that will use this complete chassis. I applaud WPL for what they have done, and I cannot wait to see what other body they're going to put on this chassis. I'm even wondering what's going to happen when they do make that jump from this smaller scale to 1/10, or at least to a larger 1/10 scale. Again, this is 1/10. Well, folks, I hope you have found this video interesting. There was a lot of little tidbits on this vehicle that I just wasn't aware of, and I hope I have brought them to light. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.